But in a way, her mind told her with perfect certitude it was fair. She was a murderer. She had broken the worst of the 10 Commandments and was surely damned to hell. She thought about this at night, with the lights turned down low so that the apartment itself seemed like a dream. She saw it all. The men on the porch wearing their crowns of flame, the cars exploding, the chickens catching fire, the smell of burning that was always the smell of smoldering stuffing, the smell of her teddy bear. And she had liked it. That was it. That was the trouble. The more she had done it, the more she had liked it. The more she had done it, the more she had been able to feel the power, a living thing, getting stronger and stronger. It was like a pyramid standing upside down, standing on its tip, and the more you did it, the harder it got to stop it. It hurt to stop it, and it was fun. And so she was never going to do it again. And that is an excerpt from the novel I'll be discussing today, which is Firestarter by Stephen King. So hello everybody, welcome back to DeathGroundReviews. It's been a while since I've uploaded. I've just been pretty busy. I'm working on a novel. I'm writing a variety of short stories. I started a blog. So yeah, I've just been busy, but I'm still planning and hoping to make it a more regularly scheduled thing to upload videos for you guys. I don't want to give up on it. I have some fun stuff planned. I recently had posted a blog post about the 21 classic horror novels that I would want to read. And the list is based on a book by the Horror Writers Association called On Writing Horror. And some of the books on the list I've read before, so it'd be fun to revisit them. And then some of them I've never read, so it'd be fun to experience them for the first time. So I'm hoping to read all of those, and then I'll probably post a video discussing each one of them. So look forward to that in the future. So today we are discussing Stephen King's novel Firestarter. And this is kind of one of his lesser known novels that kind of got lost behind the massive shadows cast by books like The Stand and It and The Shining and whatnot, the more popularly known novels. And this one came out, I think it was 1980. And this was kind of when his popularity was really beginning to rush. He's becoming more prolific at this time, it seemed. And I remember he used to joke about an idea he had in which the telekinetic girl from his novel Carrie marries Danny Torrance from The Shining, and they have a child. And what kind of wild child would that be, you know? What kind of psychic ability would that child have? And he never ended up writing that novel, but he did end up writing Firestarter, which is a concept that's very similar to the idea he used to joke about. And the plot of Firestarter is this. So there's a man and woman who participate in a top-secret government experiment where they're administered this drug called Lot 6, and it produces within them psychic abilities. They get married, they have a child, and their daughter, Charlie, she inherits her own psychic ability from them, which is pyrokinesis. She can start fires with her mind, and she's struggling to control this force within her. And, well, matters get a lot worse when Charlie and her father are on the run from the government, a government agency called The Shop, and they want Charlie back. They want their brainchild back for their own destructive means. So Firestarter kind of falls on the leaner side of Stephen King books at just 426 pages. And, he has that reputation of writing those 1,000-page whopper novels, books that would be like a brick you could throw through somebody's window. Ha ha. No, that's actually a reference to how he describes Cujo. He describes the writing of that book as like a brick being thrown through somebody's window. And I guess what he's referring to is, the book didn't require a lot of backstory, and It's very visceral and primal. It's a book meant to hit you right in the gut. But anyway, I digress. Back to Firestarter, yes. So, lean and mean, 426 pages. The narrative moves along at a breakneck and very paranoid pace. And one element that worked great throughout the novel that really added to the suspense was the dynamic between Andy and his daughter Charlie. Because Andy, not only does he have to be responsible for himself, but he's also got to be responsible for this child, and he's got these government agents constantly breathing down his neck. There's impending danger possibly around any corner. And that worked really well throughout the novel. And there was a theme embedded in that too, embedded within that scenario, that dynamic, and it's the theme of cost, right? Andy has to weigh the cost of every choice he makes along the way. And this especially plays into importance when he uses his own psychic ability. So he has this ability, something he calls the push, and he can manipulate another person's mind. He can convince him of something that's not real. For instance, he's trying to get a ride to Albany with this cab driver, and early on in the book, and he convinces him that a $1 bill is a $500 bill. And but there's a cost for using this ability. He gets headaches, he gets severe nosebleeds, and potentially he could have a brain hemorrhage. So he has to weigh out when is the best time to use this ability, right? Is using it now to manipulate this person worth the potential brain hemorrhage I could have in the future? And I found that just very interesting and very paranoia-inducing and suspenseful. Oh, and also another fascinating element of this is he can also accidentally cause severe psychological side effects to those he pushes, haunting them with hallucinations. It's something he calls a ricochet. And later in the novel, you get some creepy demonstrations of this. One of them involves a sink disposal unit and someone's arm, and I'm sure you can imagine the gory possibilities with that. Another man is disturbed by the hallucination of snakes, one of his worst fears. Snakes are lurking in every corner of his life. And King has a lot of fun knocking around in these people's heads, and I had a lot of fun going along for the ride. So if you guys can't already tell, I'm really big on theme. It's probably the literary studies major in me. Every time I read a book, I really dive into it. And I'm going to dive into it some more here. Some of you might hate that. Bear with me, I guess. But I saw a theme about the powers, I guess, of femininity and sexual awakening in Charlie McGee's character. And I saw it particularly within her struggle to control this pyrokinesis, Because there's this part of her, in the excerpt I read at the beginning of the book, she's remembering burning these people to death. She's remembering exploding cars. She's remembering chickens lighting on fire, and she liked it, right? And it made me think of, a young teenage kid realizing their sexual potential or realizing their attraction to the opposite sex. And, part of them being afraid of that and unable to control it, but also liking it, and the conflict of that going on inside them. And I saw that within Charlie's character. And there's also moments in the novel where her father refers to her ability as the bad thing, right? And, it kind of brings to mind the parent who would say to the child about sex, don't do that, that's the bad thing. But yeah, there's an interesting theme I saw in that. And I don't know what it means particularly. Perhaps the novel is suggesting that we should learn to embrace the powers born of our masculine or feminine traits, but we must strive to do so with a bridled, temperate approach. Otherwise, we just end up stirring chaos, destroying the good order of things. That's one possibility that came to my mind. Now, I don't think that Stephen King, sat down with the intention of expressing that theme. I think it just emerged organically as he was writing the book. But yeah, another fascinating element to me. And I think I'll end this segment here before I start writing an English midterm paper on the nature of femininity in Stephen King's Firestarter. But I hope you get the point of my brief hobby horse. So the character John Rainbird I also found very compelling in this novel. And part of the reason why is, so there's this other novel I read a while back called Carry On Comfort by Dan Simmons. And there's a part in that novel where one of the characters says that, the James Bond stuff is crap. Hired contract killers of the government are basically just psychopaths, but they're just under greater control. And when I read that line and then read about John Rainbird, I went, yep, that's exactly right. And he's just a very awful, ungovernable, disturbing character. And he's obsessed with Charlie McGee. And he when he kills her, he hopes that in the process of killing her, he can glimpse in her eyes the elusive mystery of what death is. And just gives me a chill, though. But it's great in the story. It works great. So before I wrap things up, I just wanted to share a paragraph from the novel. I read an excerpt early on, but there's another paragraph that I just loved that I want to read for you. It's on page 8 of my Signet paperback edition. And the reason I love it is it paints a very tragic and escalates the feeling of paranoia that you'll feel throughout the novel, but it also reads a lot like beat poetry. There's an interesting rhythm to it, but here we go. Andy McGee and his wife, Pretty Vicky, they had pulled her fingernails out, one by one. They had pulled out 4 of them, and then she had talked. That, at least, was his deduction. Thumb, index, second, ring, then, stop. I'll talk. I'll tell you anything you want to know. Just stop the hurting. Please. So she had told them. And then, perhaps it had been an accident. Then his wife had died. Well, some things are bigger than both of us. And other things are bigger than all of us. Things like the shop, for instance. Thud, thud, thud. Riderless black horse coming on, coming on, coming on. Behold, a black horse. Andy slept and remembered. And yeah, end quote. Like I said, it has a very interesting rhythm, the way that reads, and I think it encapsulates just that suspenseful feeling of paranoia throughout the book very well. So what is my overall conclusion of Firestarter by Stephen King? I think I'd give it a 4 out of 5. I think it's a hidden gem. I think it's a really great novel. I like how lean and fast-paced he made it. I like how he starts it out in medias res. I really love, like I said, the writing style of it. There's some great action sequences of when Charlie's pyrokinesis ability blows out of control and cars are exploding and cartridges and guns are going off bizarrely, and just a fascinating concept, I think it's a great novel. The ending is a little bit of a stretch, and when you get to the ending, you might agree with me. But I still think you should check it out. It's one of his lesser-known books, and you missed a treat if you haven't read Firestarter by Stephen King. And this is DeathGroundReviews, the monster that devours horror, suspense, and all those things of the fantastic. And I'll talk to you guys next time.